Here's an example of a real MCAT CP passage question with expert feedback. Which amino acid residues were incorporated into compound 1 to promote the adhesion of cells on the scaffold surfaces?
Let's move on to question 2. Which amino acid residues were incorporated into compound 1 to promote the adhesion of cells on the scaffold surfaces? So how did you approach that one?
Sorry, let me just look at it here.
Yep.
No, this one was just a guess. I had no idea.
Okay, no worries. So the key here is that we're looking at amino acid residues. So based on our summaries that we have for our paragraphs, this is the only paragraph really that talks about the amino acid residues, so we should look towards here. And the question is asking about the adhesion of cells onto the scaffold surface. And when we look, we actually have a mention here, residues with affinity for cells. So we should look for that region in here, and we can actually just continue going through each of these different regions. And as I'm sure that you are kind of figuring out, we're going from left to right. So these spacer residues are these glycine residues. So they just have hydrogens. They have nothing to contribute other than creating space in the chain. Then we have this residue that was phosphorylated for future attachment of nanocrystals of HA. Well, phosphorylated, this is the only residue that has a phosphorus on it. So that makes sense. And that leaves us with this last region here being the ones that have the residues with the affinities for cells. And so if you can get here, it really is just realizing what these amino acids are. And in this case, it ends up being aspartic acid and arginine.
Okay. So it's just about figuring out the what do you call it? Like the chemical structure of the amino acids. Yeah.
Yeah. It was kind of, if I was to put it into a strategy, it was realizing that this is a passage-based question, finding the particular part of the passage that talks about it, which is of course the part that I've highlighted here, this big paragraph as well as the figure, then deciphering this paragraph and what this means towards the figure, and then of course just identifying what they were based on their structure.
I think in terms of like strategy or like process of thinking, I think that I did that like subconsciously.
Yeah.
Because I did look at this part and I recognized like affinity for cells. That means like it's this question. Like I did do all of that. I just at the end, when I'm faced with the choices, that's where like I was guessing. But in terms of like logic wise, like I am following you. Yeah. I just get caught in the last part where I'm just like, I know it's that part, but I don't know what those are called specifically. So I think, yeah, if I make myself some flashcards, that would help.
Yeah, I definitely get in that, at least for these amino acids, at least right now, it's more of a lack of content you need to kind of review rather than the lack of how to approach each of these questions. I will still go over how to approach the questions, obviously, because it's important. That's the strategies that you need to build, and there will be trickier questions where you'll need to use these strategies.
Yeah.
Incorporate these tips and strategies into your MCAT independent study to score in the 90th percentile or higher in the CP section.